welcome to the House of Wellness. And what do you reckon, Das? Out here in the winter sun, I don't know, somewhere there. There's vitamin D around here for sure.
It's trying hard, Joe. Nature's healer, I like to think of it as, and there's a lot of healing and innovation going on in medicine and science as well, Jack.
That's right, Das. New treatments and cures from everything from cholesterol to measles to malaria and more. Today we're unlocking the advances in medicine.
Including a laser light, Dr. Nick Carr, that is targeting deadly bacteria and could be a potential game changer.
Yeah, well, superbugs really are a global menace right now, Das. And so we'll be meeting the team of researchers that are literally going to blast them with light.
Plus the amazing trial in artificial skin to treat diabetes, which could mean the end to insulin jabs permanently.
We have got remedies covered from head to toe today, including a British foot reader, Jack.
Look, Das, Joe, Nick, it's a thing. I've met a woman who believes that wellness truly does come from the soul.
On your big toe pad, you've got an extra swelling on there, and that appears when you're going through a period of overthinking more than usual. What I'm now going to do is lift your foot and have a look and see if you've got any cracks, which would indicate obstacles you have to overcome.
When you tell people what you do, what sort of reaction do you get?
They are definitely sceptical. I mean, I would be if someone came up and said, "Oh, hi, I'm a foot reader." It's like,
Yeah.
what's that?
The UK's #1 foot reader, Jane Sheehan, says she once counted herself amongst the sceptics, but an emotional encounter caused her to do a complete heel turn.
I was with my friend Claudine for her birthday. She fancied having some reflexology. I didn't know what it was. We rock up and they're telling her all about her health, and I'm thinking, that's bonkers, you know. Then they start working on me, and every time they touched my big toe, I had tears streaming down my face. I had no control over it, and worse, it repeated on the other foot. So I had to know more. And this led me to a guy called Imre Shumagi, and he'd interviewed 5,000 people about their toe shapes and their personality, I kid you not. And I memorised them. And I started using them on anyone and everyone who'd let me. And it got way out of hand. It got to the stage I'd go to a party and I'd be given a foot before I'd be given a glass in my hand. In the past, you would try and keep your feelings to yourself, especially your feelings about work. That's this piece of hard skin here. And now that's changed. I look on the present foot and that's not there anymore. So now, you know, you've moved on from that situation. I read emotions and personality through the distortions in the feet. So if your feet are perfect, I'm not interested because that's normal, that's balance. I'm looking for the things that are off balance, that are distorted. Your right foot represents the past for me, and your left foot represents the present. So I'm seeing differences. So if it's wider on the right than the left, it means you were more hardworking in the past than now. Now it's a love of aesthetics.
Can you actually see someone's personality when you look at their feet?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, well, if you think about how you walk, you watch people walking down the street and you can see who's got the world on the shoulders. You know, they're more slumped forward. They're cutting off the blood circulation to the toes. So I will see depression as dark purple or black in the toe pads because of that cut off of the blood supply, because they slump more forward. And if you see someone who's jolly, they've got a spring in their step, haven't they? And you see a pinkier look on the feet. And if they're angry, they're like slapping their feet on the ground. And you see the feet with a lot more red in them, and you know red's anger when you're looking at the feet. So I'm looking at those colour changes through the blood supply because of how they're walking. Can you see you've got this sort of bulging shape out from the little toe?
Well, I hadn't noticed, but yeah.
This would be the shoulder reflex in reflexology, and we would call that big shoulders for other people to cry on. So, good listener. And the great thing is you've learnt that listening is enough. You don't take it on board as if it's your own. So that's nice.
Oh, good.
There is science behind it, but I think it's a science and an art. Imre Shumagi's work is well documented, and that's where we've allocated each of the toes one of the 5 elements and studied what does it mean if there's a distortion in that element. However, I've also amalgamated some other theories. So Chris Stormer is a South African foot reader who says she channeled it from the angels. Well, I've used some of her work to read the rest of the foot because Imri's work is just the toes. Also, I've benchmarked it. The more people that I see, the more I fine-tune how I'm reading. When I'm looking at the heels, in the zone 4 down, there's a tiny bit of peeling skin, which represents fresh start, new beginning, in the way you're thinking about people who are close to you impacting on your sense of security and how you want to move forward and take the next step. And the peeling would indicate fresh start, new beginning in that situation. So pretty good news, really, in terms of moving forward and taking the next step.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I feel exposed.
Well, you seem to be really enjoying that one, Jack. Any surprises in your foot read?
Look, there were a few, to be honest. There were a few, but I'm going to ask you, I had to do that. Would you do it?
Hard no. Thank you very much. I don't really like having
I took
my
one for the
feet
team
touched.
there.
You
No,
totally
she
did.
did ask me if she could touch my feet. I said, oh, all right. Go to the House of Wellness, all right.
Yeah, well done. We are talking about advances in medicine today, and Nick, you've got something for people who aren't a big fan of needles, I believe.
Yeah, like many of us, Darcy.
Yeah, not a big fan.
Yes, this team in the US have developed an adhesive patch, a little bit like a Band-Aid for the measles and rubella vaccines, and it's worn on the wrist, and these tiny micro needles deliver the vaccine.
So I imagine this is great, not just for those who don't like needles, but also for low-income countries where you can just put a patch on.
Absolutely.
Well, the breakthroughs are happening closer to home as well. A revolutionary new drug to treat cholesterol is being trialled with exciting results.
We have two challenges with statins. The first is that we know that some patients can't tolerate them. The other thing is that even in patients who can tolerate them, not everybody gets their cholesterol level as low as we would like them to get. So they may need other medications on top of a statin to more effectively lower their cholesterol. Now, what we've recently reported are the results of a new medication called bempedoic acid. It acts in the liver in a similar way to the way statins do, but it doesn't cause the muscle aches and pains. And the reason why it doesn't cause the muscle aches and pains is that when you take this drug, it's turned off. And the factor that turns it on is in the liver, but not in the muscle. So you get the cholesterol lowering in the liver, but you don't get the muscle aches and pains. And so there's a theoretical advantage, particularly for patients who can't tolerate a statin.
Professor Nichols led a 4-year clinical study conducted in 600 hospitals in 32 countries. It was the first time that all the participants in the trial were not just high risk, but also intolerant to a statin.
So what we found was the first thing was that this was really well tolerated by patients. So that's important, that it's one thing for it to be effective, but it needs to be tolerated by patients to take it. The second thing was that it lowered cholesterol by 20 to 25%, which was good. But importantly, we're able to show that it lowered the risk of having a heart attack, a stroke, requiring a stent or dying, and it reduced that risk by about 15%.
Nearly half the 14,000 participants in the trial were women, nearly twice as many as in similar studies.
Women are just as likely to die from heart disease as men. We under-recognise it, we under-diagnose it, we under-treat it, and we don't enrol women as equally in our clinical trials.
But according to Dr. Nichols, the greatest impact we can have on heart disease in both men and women is prevention.
I think society, both the general community and the medical community, have typically had this bias, and the bias is that men get heart disease and women get breast cancer. Women do get breast cancer, but they're 3 times more likely to die of a heart attack than they are of breast cancer. So breast cancer is important. We take that seriously. We should take heart disease seriously in women as well.
More world-first breakthroughs from the team at Monash University, Joe.
But wait, there's more, Darcy. Yes, the team at the Peter Doherty Institute are leading an investigation into a grisly love of yours, Dr. Nick, flesh-eating bugs.
Yeah, I know it's a bit weird, but I do love this stuff. It's called Baruli, and it's really widespread in Victoria and increasingly in the coastal regions. And it's a horrible bug. It's from the same family as tuberculosis and leprosy, so pretty thick.
That sounds like a good time.
And researchers are now looking at links to possum poo, where the bug lives, and it's then transmitted via mosquitoes to humans. So anything that we can do, because it's really nasty, anything we can do to stop it would be great.
Well, up next, the fight against superbugs continues. We meet the Adelaide researcher blasting nasties with light. Dr. Nick, when it comes to medical breakthroughs, Australia really is leading the way. And when you look at the work that the Peter Doherty Institute did on the global race for a COVID vaccine, it's pretty remarkable stuff.
And that amazing work still continues now in the field of malaria, a disease which kills over 500,000 people worldwide. And so far, finding a good vaccine has been really elusive.
Dr. Nick, the same technology that was used for the COVID vaccine is now being used for that malaria vaccine. Clinical trials haven't yet started, but it is hoped that this is the missing link.
Yeah, it looks really promising, Jack. This is the same mRNA technology that was used for COVID, and it's looking really promising as a malaria vaccine. And we so need this because diseases like malaria and the rise of superbugs are some of the biggest global health challenges that we're facing.
And what about superbugs and our reliance on antibiotics?
Yeah, so we doctors are at fault, along with things like the farming industry's use of antibiotics, and that's causing the resistance leading to the superbugs. And so the sooner we find alternatives to antibiotics, the better.
Well, one bright spark at the University of South Australia is now leading the way.
If you thought bees and wasps were the scariest bugs out there, think again. Today, superbugs are a far greater threat to human health.
Superbugs are where bacteria in our environment or in our bodies become resistant to antibiotics. Unfortunately now, these superbugs are in our hospitals, in our environment, in our bodies, and they're making infectious disease a major challenge for humans.
Globally, about 1.2 million people die per year from infections caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria. But according to UniSA pharmaceutical science professor Clive Prestige, this could be just the tip of the iceberg.
We've all lived in a world where we've had effective antibiotics, and most of us have relied on them. You may have had a cut in the garden, and you go to the doctor, it gets a bit inflamed, you take an antibiotic. Let's project forward a few years where those antibiotics are not working. That means that infection will get worse and worse and worse, and potentially the worst thing that can happen is it actually turns into a blood-based infection. Sepsis becomes even more difficult to actually address, and it can be life-threatening. By 2050, estimations are an additional 50 million people will die from superbugs or from antimicrobial resistance, which is actually much bigger than major pandemics we've seen recently.
Thankfully, there's at least one beacon of hope on the horizon. PhD candidate Mohammed Awad has developed a unique light therapy treatment that could turn the tide in the fight against superbugs.
What we're actually doing is what we do in our households, what our mothers told us always, keep the house like with sunlight and with good air, and this house will never get sick.
The new treatment involves applying a special oil to a wound, then exposing it to laser light. This light generates highly reactive oxygen molecules that have been proven to eradicate harmful bacteria, including those elusive superbugs.
We've tested this technology in animal trials, and it has shown great success in reducing the bacterial burden in the wound. And it's also what was really exciting for us, it accelerated the wound healing. It's exciting, like it started as a crazy idea and ended up with some good results. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm looking forward to continue working on this.
Our work and others' work on photodynamic antimicrobial therapy is extremely exciting. If we can develop technologies that can be used to kill bacteria without the use of conventional antibiotics, it'll be a game changer for human health.
Amazing, Joe. To me, the COVID period gave us all a real focus on taking care of our personal hygiene in ways that we hadn't before.
Yeah, surprising we weren't on top of that. But I will say, like, I am still, when I come home from the shops, the first thing I do is I wash my hands. But I am not scrubbing my veggies before I put them in the fridge anymore. Can't be bothered with that.
It might have been a bit over the top when you look back on that one. Do you know there's a product being sold in the US at the moment that apparently can detect viruses, flus and colds in the air? There will be a serious demand, I think, for a product like that, Joe. Up next, the artificial skin that's being hailed as a potential breakthrough in a cure for diabetes next on the House of Wellness. Among the heavyweights of Australian medicine that we like to acknowledge include those that were part of the recovery team post the Bali bombings in 2002.
Yeah, absolutely does. People like Fiona Wood, the Perth plastic surgeon who treated many victims with her revolutionary spray-on skin.
Working in tandem with Dr Wood was Adelaide surgeon Dr John Greenwood. He treated the Bali victims and immediately got to work developing an artificial skin for burns victims.
Which was absolutely remarkable, Jack, but little did he know that just a few floors further down in the same Royal Adelaide Hospital was another remarkable scientist doing equally breakthrough research, but this time on diabetes.
The two doctors met, their minds and work merged, and the result is an artificial skin that is right now being used to treat diabetes.
A cure for type 1 diabetes could be around the corner, but it won't come in the familiar form of a pill or an injection. Instead, it's the surprising result of a medical journey that began in 2002 at Royal Adelaide Hospital, when world-leading burns surgeon Dr John Greenwood found himself treating victims of the Bali bombings.
The main thing that we found regarding the Bali bombings was that the sheer volume of burn cases meant that the normal way that we treat patients, immediate burn excision and very rapid closure, couldn't be achieved. So what I decided after the Bali bombings was that we needed a way or a material that we could use so that when we removed burns immediately, we could temporise the wound.
Dr Greenwood spent the next decade developing a game-changing artificial skin product designed to eliminate the need for skin grafts and reduce the risk of infection in serious burns cases.
There were a proportion of burn injuries that couldn't survive, irrespective of what we did. And it began to be apparent that with the BTM material, I could save the life of burns patients of any size, including one patient with a 95% full thickness burn. And that kind of realisation gives you an enormous relief.
But while Dr Greenwood was revolutionising burns treatments...
I mean, Jess, nice to see you.
Thank you.
In the very same hospital, Dr Toby Coates was investigating new ways to control type 1 diabetes.
I didn't know him, of course, because he was 4 floors above me. And, I don't leave the burns unit and he doesn't leave the renal unit, so we never met.
That finally changed one fateful day in 2015, when Dr Coates witnessed Dr Greenwood giving a presentation on his latest research.
There was one slide that he showed which just was exactly what we've been looking for. So it was like one of those eureka moments when I thought, hang on, this is actually what the field has been looking for the last 15 or 20 years. And here it is, sitting in the burns unit 4 floors down from where I work. So that was really the moment that I thought, hang on, we need to do something about this. And that's when we started the collaboration.
By combining their separate areas of expertise, the two doctors have suddenly found themselves on the path to conquering type 1 diabetes. The unique treatment they've spent the past few years developing involves implanting a small patch of artificial skin into a patient's upper arm. The artificial skin stimulates high blood flow, creating a similar environment to a person's pancreas, which is then injected with insulin-producing cells. Once refined, the procedure could put a permanent end to insulin injections.
This could be done easily in a GP practice under local anaesthetic. So, we're trying to create something that's easy to do, easy to monitor, easy to remove, but leaving a tangible and long-term, hopefully lifelong, treatment for type 1 diabetes.
Last year, primary school principal Alec Tibbetts became the very first diabetic to undergo a trial of the new treatment.
I'm proud to be the first. I do feel quite lucky because I know there were thousands of people that would have put their hand up. My daughter is a type 1 diabetic as well, and when my daughter is cured, I want her to know that her dad was a part of that.
While Alec can't throw away his needles just yet, the results from his 3-month trial suggest it's only a matter of time.
At the moment, I'm on about 1/3 of the insulin that I was before. And my hemoglobin A1C, which is a long-term measure of blood glucose control, is now the same as a non-diabetic.
Look, we're extremely happy, to be honest. To go from bench to bedside like this in your career, nobody gets to do that. It's an absolutely fantastic thing to develop something completely new for the first time. And then for it to work the first time and work so well, we're very, very pleased.
Sometimes the best ideas are synergies between clinicians in particular or researchers of different fields coming together to have an idea and then taking that idea to a realisation. And the realisation in this case is if you can do what we've done in the first patient and have the result we've got at 3 months, what you have is a cure or a treatment for diabetes that's just not been optimised yet.
All the very best to primary school principal Alec and the medical minds behind this extraordinary breakthrough. Dr. Nick, anything that can get rid of daily injections has to be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, no one likes a needle, do they, Das?
No, not a big fan. No.
But diabetes really is the 21st century silent epidemic, and it's actually the biggest challenge facing the Australian health system.
But I'm confused by this, Dr. Nick, because aren't we getting better educated about lifestyle and diet?
And foods are so much more appealing, they're so much more varied, so why is diabetes worsening?
Well, it's such a great question, Jack, and it's really just a combination of the easy availability of fast, highly processed and sugar-laden foods, combined with our sort of sedentary lifestyle leading to obesity.
Amazing how often, Dr. Nick, it boils down to better exercise and diet. Up next, we discuss the life-saving gift of organ donation.
Sleep is so important because this is when we rejuvenate, we detox, and we rebuild. It's when all of our hormones get balanced. It is so important. And it not only affects our physical health, but it affects our mental health as well.
We're spending 26 years on average sleeping. So if we can optimize 26 years of our life, it has a flow-on effect to everything we do.
I used to be a professional dancer and I burnt the candle at both ends. And so for me, getting my sleep sorted was so important. I can show up as a better mother, a better boss, a better wife, happier and healthier in every area of my life when I am rested.
Productivity, focus, moodiness, even down to things like sex drive, libido, it's all affected by sleep.
We take our sleep very seriously, so we have a lot of different little things that we do to set up our space so that we can both thrive and have a really nourishing sleep. Making sure the room is dark, and if it's not dark, wearing an eye mask. Earplugs if it's noisy, no screens in the bedroom.
If you see us at 5 or 6 o'clock at home, we'll have these glasses on that have yellow or red lenses in them. And that's really, again, to filter out the blue light so our body doesn't think it's daytime.
A good sleep routine can always do with some extra support, and this is where Wonderlust liquid herbal supplements come in.
There's the Wonderlust Sleep Botanicals, which contains California poppy. It's based on traditional Western herbal medicine and assists with mind relaxation and gives you a really refreshing sleep.
There's also Wonderlust ashwagandha, which is rapidly absorbed by the body, and it's based on traditional Ayurvedic medicine. This may help calm the nerves and assist the body in adapting to stress. Sleep as part of our 9 pillars of health, happiness and longevity is what we will be covering together at the Wonderlust True North Festival.
Thanks to singer, dancer, couple and wellbeing advocates Melissa and Nick there. Well, Nick, we've just had a national call out for life-saving organ donors. Donate Life held their annual awareness campaign, but of course it is a need all year round. There's no time limit.
Yeah, it's so important, Jo, because currently 1,800 Australians are on the waiting list for a life-saving organ transplant.
And 80% of Australians aged 16 and up do support organ donation, but that number plummets when it comes to actually registering.
Yeah, and it only takes a minute to register online, and it's crucial because every organ donor can save up to 7 lives and help many more.
Stephen was a very big personality. He loved to laugh. He was a very generous person, very creative as well. He was a musician and in bands for over 20 years. We met in Brisbane back when we were both at uni. I was 19, he was in his early 20s, so we've been together for coming up to 20 years. It was a very kind of normal day for us. We were out doing a family activity and, you know, getting the kids in the car, and all of a sudden he collapsed. And it turned out that he had suffered a catastrophic brain hemorrhage.
It's rare that someone dies in a medical situation where organ donation is possible. Typically, this is in an intensive care unit where someone is on a life support machine and there's a decision to withdraw the life support, or someone has a catastrophic injury to their brain and they deteriorate to brain death.
He had actually registered to be an organ donor when he was 18, when he was getting his licence. I thought that I would have understood what his wishes were, but there's always that kind of element of, is this really what he would have wanted, you know, in the back of your mind? And I guess we were lucky that us as a family were all on the same page about that as well, but I can imagine there would be a lot of stress and anxiety, you know, if faced with that decision without knowing what that person would have wanted. So knowing that Stephen, you know, had ticked that box, had wanted to donate his organ and tissues, it just made that decision that little bit easier.
Often we're speaking to families about organ donation on the worst day of their lives. They're losing someone that they love dearly, someone that's really precious to them. And when they know that this person would have wanted to be an organ donor, it just makes it so much easier for them to have a conversation about donation, support donation.
Stephen was able to donate his heart, his liver, and also his corneas. So we ended up actually writing letters to the recipients of his organs as well, which was, hugely emotional for me, but I knew that I wanted to do that, to kind of tell them about Stephen and kind of who he was as well. And I ended up receiving a letter back from the heart recipient, which, you know, I mean, it was heartbreaking, but yeah, it also, I guess, allowed me to understand the hugeness of what Stephen had done for this person as well.
We know that Australians are very generous when it comes to organ and tissue donation. So in surveys, 80% of Australians say that they would support organ donation and would be willing to be donors. The problem is that there is a gap between this intention and then the action of registering and speaking to your loved ones. It's really important that people take that minute to register, because that minute could mean a lifetime for someone else.
Knowing that Stephen's heart is still out there, it's like there's something that I can't quite wrap my head around it, despite Stephen losing his life, you know, and that was something that, you know, we had no control over, and, you know, we couldn't change and couldn't do anything about it. I think to have something good result out of that, it's huge.
Hey, Jack, I generally think organ donation is one of the great gifts anyone can pass on.
Couldn't agree more, Darcy. I'm going to pivot now. We're going to talk about loneliness and this amazing program that's happening in Zimbabwe. They're called friendship benches, where older healthcare workers are actually employed to sit and talk to people who are on their own.
Yeah, it was helping the country recover from some tough times recently, and we know it made a big impact on loneliness and depression. And London is the next country that is going to introduce friendship benches in the coming months. What do you make of that?
I love that, Darcy. And in the UK, they even have a ministry for loneliness. We don't have one of those here, but maybe we should.
And that is a great way to connect. Up next on the House of Wellness, a breakthrough in the fight against prostate cancer.
Dr. Nick, there's a really important new campaign that's trying to put a positive spin on prostate cancer.
Yes, and August is National Legends Month, and it's all about nominating a legend in your life. It could be anyone, best mate, a brother, dad, grandfather, whoever you like.
Well, you're a bit of a legend, Dr. Nick, but I think what it is trying to teach us is to show the men in our lives how much we love them, how much we need them, and how important it is to go and get tested early.
My dad, Barry, was a legend because he was my dad. And simple as that, he was my dad. He, you know, a daughter loves her dad. Like, it's a different type of love to loving your partner or your children. And he was just a legend. He was 6'5", big personality. He was just a big man, and I miss him. So Dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer when he was 53. And he'd gone to the doctor a couple of times because he was aching down there. And he was just told, you know, hormones were changing and he'll be fine. And he wasn't satisfied with that answer, but let a bit of time go past. And so by the time he got to a specialist, unfortunately, the cancer had moved to his bones and he was diagnosed as terminal. And his 3-month prognosis, he stretched it out to 2 years. So we were very thankful for that. The aim of Rule Prostate is to protect our legends. We all have legends in our lives. Our husbands, our partners, our brothers, our sons, our friends, our dads. And we want to protect them. I am surrounded by a lot of prostates in my family with my husband, my 3 sons, my 2 brothers. I think for guys in general, they just need to be proactive with their health. Sometimes they are reluctant. When Dad was diagnosed, the testing was a little more invasive, and things have changed now, and the testing now is a blood test. So if you feel something's not right or you're of age that it's time to have a test, go get a blood test, because it is a cancer that if detected early enough, is curable. So National Legends Month is all about raising money for our legends and for research and for treatment for prostate cancer. So what you can do is you can buy a bucket hat, or we're calling it a bucket, but we want you to know it's a hat, not a bucket. You can buy a bucket for $20 from Thirsty Camel pubs, from participating pubs. You can go onto the website. We're coming up to 26 years having lost Dad, and I think he'd just be thrilled with the advancement that Rule Prostate has made with getting men involved in looking after their health, getting checked, and hopefully a lot less lives lost to prostate cancer.
Jo, let me ask you, who's your life legend?
Well, of course, it's the love of my life, Daz, who is a brilliant man, but like many men, is no good at looking after his own health. He needs a little bit of a nudge there. What about you?
Daz would be very happy to hear that, by the way. I think of my dad often, Jo, who was a brilliant influence on me, really humble, really generous guy. And he did something really special, even though I probably wanted to be a lot like him. He played football for a living, never once ever overlaid any of his thoughts on me. He just let me go about it my own way, which was pretty generous.
Well, back to the future now, Daz. I think we've all got used to coffee machines making our morning brew, sometimes before we even wake up, and we've seen robot waiters, but how would you feel about having your food made 100% by robots?
Jeez, I don't know about that, Jo. I'm not sure I'm on board with it. I can't imagine. Do you think that a burger made by a robot would be better than one made by humans? What do you think?
Well, I don't know about that, Daz, but this startup restaurant believes they only need 1 human staff member to make 3,000 dishes.
Well, that is staggering. And you think waiters, cooks, you know, chefs, TV hosts, we're all under threat, Jo, from AI. But rather than fight it, Hines and Zoe have decided to get on board with the robotic revolution. Check it out.
It's official, Zoe. We're being replaced by robots.
Oh, hang on. What do you mean? I mean, we're still here? Have we been fired? I'm so confused.
Hang on, no. Let me explain. So instead of us crafting the recipes today, they've been created by the artificial intelligence platform ChatGPT.
Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, ChatGPT has been in the news a lot lately for its unreal ability to engage in human-like conversations by understanding your input and generating text responses.
That said, let's unpick these 2 recipes that it's created for us. I refuse to give up hope, even if it is quicker at creating recipes than me. My healthy AI-created recipe is actually this sweet potato and black bean burrito bowl, and I gotta say, I do love Mexican.
Yeah, not to scare you, it does contain a lot of nutrient-rich ingredients like sweet potato, which is packed full of vitamin C, and it also has plant-based protein coming from the black beans. Wow.
It's looking like a healthy and fulfilling meal thanks to the complex carbohydrates, quality protein and fibre, and they've actually used avocado, and that's a healthy fat. We are doomed.
But you know what? The recipe calls for bell peppers, which is the American word for capsicum. You know what? Those Aussie home cooks, they could get a little confused by this.
Now, I feel like that was a little bit of a stretch, but thanks anyway, Zoe. What has AI asked you to make today?
A Mediterranean quinoa salad. Now, it's got a variety of colourful ingredients. It's rich in antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, and it's low calorie.
What I love is that it's suggested that it's also customisable. So if you wanted to up your protein intake, you could add some chicken, some chickpeas, even black beans.
Oh my God, Lukey, they've thought of everything.
Although it's scary for us, what an incredible resource for the viewers at home. It can suggest healthy recipes, or you can even use it to make sure that you're living a healthy, happy lifestyle.
Call me old-fashioned, Lukey, but I really love to pick up a cookbook. There's a recipe, a story behind it, there's beautiful photos, and this is obviously something a computer can't provide.
Yet, Zoe. Yet.
Studies have shown that your belief about ageing drives your health and longevity. So by developing this belief about ageing, meaning that you actually love ageing, actually will contribute to having health. After interviewing 100-year-olds and 110-year-olds that were living healthy, not unhealthy, was their belief about ageing. They would say, "Can't wait to show you my garden in 3 years' time." So they had no relationship to time and space about ageing. They were just living in the moment. So, for example, there's a guy that was feeling decrepit and old at 89. He just started weight training. He ended up winning the world record for a 200-metre sprint at 92. And if you just go and do the search on centenarians and super centenarians, meaning 100 years old and 110 years old, and see what they're doing, you'll see that they're doing new things. They start fencing in their 80s, as an example. They might be still riding their bike at 100, or they'll be taking up new activities because the brain needs a lot of novelty, and it doesn't need to be doing less, it actually needs to be doing more as you get older. So what you start to see people doing as they're ageing is they start taking things out of their life, thinking that they shouldn't be doing that now at 60 or 70 or whatever age it is, even 40. Rather than building new things in, I should be taking up art. I should be, going and doing new things that I've never done before. I could learn a language. You can absolutely do that. I should go and travel to South America and learn Spanish. Even though it sounds really scary, when you push up against those factors, you're actually driving brain plasticity. The brain needs a lot of novelty to grow. It's all about your mindset and belief system. And take that 10 seconds, take a deep breath, and ask yourself the question, do I want to age well? Do I want to have a long and happy life? Do I want to live, or do I want to survive?
Today's show is focused on cutting-edge innovations that not only help us live longer, but age well at the same time.
And the results are in from a study into the lifestyle of 700,000 veterans, and it identified 8 healthy habits that, if practised from around the age of 40, can add years to your life.
And not just a few years, Jo. It was 24 for men and 21 for women, which is pretty amazing.
So what are those 8 habits? They are regular exercise, healthy diet, sleeping well and maintaining good social relationships.
Plus reducing stress, Dr. Nick. You want to drink in moderation, avoid smoking and opioid addiction. Give that one a big miss at the same time. Probably clear for itself, that one.
Stay away from the opiates. But the researchers were amazed by how much benefit, not just from all 8, but even just 1 or 2 of these lifestyle habits. And they reckon that they comprise about 80% of our risk of healthy ageing.
And the great news is it's never too late to start.
That's all we've got time for today on the House of Wellness.
You check out myself and Gerald Quickly on House of Wellness Radio every Sunday.
Thank you to the wonderful Ripponlea Estate for our beautiful office today. Can't complain.
Thank you, Jacqui Felgate, Dr. Nick Carr and Joe Stanley. Good to catch up with you as always. And to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse, thank you to them. We'll see you next time.